Hey everyone, welcome to my channel and to my December reading wrap-up. So you are here to see what I read in December, so let's just get straight into it. So I finally read Jamaica Ginger by Nalo Hopkinson, and she hasn't came out with a collection of short stories since Falling in Love with Hominids, which is one of my favorite books of all time. And if you watch my blog video, I did read this over my holiday vacation and talked a lot about it there. This book was so fun to read. Nalo Hopkinson is such a great author and she's so unserious, but she is just the best at using her imagination and putting it into words on a page that she knows her readers can appreciate and enjoy. And to be honest, I thought I was going to get more fantasy with this book, but it's actually very sci-fi. So it's more of a sci-fi fantasy, which is not a bad thing because I thoroughly enjoyed this collection of short stories. A couple of my favorites were Can't Beat 'Em and Child Moon, and the way she's able to tell a fully fleshed out story in a short amount of time is just amazing. So here's the synopsis of the book. You can pause and read it. Like I said, this is only her second published collection of short stories. Her first one is Falling in Love with Hominids, which I really loved as well. But this one I really love too, and I think I'm gonna give it 5 stars. This is a 5-star read for me. So that was Jamaica Ginger by Nalo Hopkinson. This is adult fiction, so just keep that in mind. Please check content and trigger warnings before reading all of these books, and these are all adult fiction, by the way. So next I read An Intrigue of Witches, and I was pleasantly surprised with An Intrigue of Witches. I'd never heard of this author before, and I was kind of skeptical at first, but this author did a really good job of showcasing me her skills. I am very critical when it comes to new to me authors because I've been reading for years and I'm kind of an advanced reader, so it takes a lot to impress me, and this book really impressed me. One of the things I liked most about this book was that the main character was a 30-something Black historian. I'm finding myself moving more and more away from the YA genre, and I like when I can relate to characters on my age level. And also this book was just giving cozy, small town Black mystery, and I really enjoyed it. And Shallow Waters was one I had really high hopes for. This was another new to me author, Anita Kopax. I had never heard of her before, and I don't really remember how I came across this book, but once I did and I read the synopsis, I had so many high hopes for this book. It's about an Orisha Yamaya reimagined in 19th century America, and I had thought this story was going to be just like so good, but to me it kind of just fell after the first few chapters. Once the story got really going and more characters were introduced, it went from being what I thought it was going to be to being this white savior type story, and I did not expect that. If it wasn't so focused on that, then it would actually have been a really good story, and I just wish you would have told it in a way that was more centered to the Orishas and not so much of this we're here to help everybody type trope. That's the best way I can explain it without spoiling it. I gave it 3 stars. I was so lucky to get my hands on an early copy of Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor. It felt like this book came directly from her, like she sent it to me. And this is probably my first time getting an advanced copy of a book from a best-selling author. And I'm not even gonna lie, I used this book as a flex. I was reading at the airport, I read it on the beach, I read it on the boat, I was reading it everywhere in public that I could read. The book itself is so different from any of her other books, but it's also written in a way that only Nnedi Okorafor can write, because look at this back cover. It's actually 2 stories in one book. And this is something that I kind of struggled with in the beginning, but as I moved along in the story, it started to really come together very well. The plot was very moving, and I think I may have almost shed a tear at one point. And I hope that people don't judge this book too harshly, because not only was it a great book, a great story, great writing, it also makes you think. And I gave it 4.5 stars. This month I decided to restart the Earth Singer Chronicles series so that I can finally finish it, and the series begins with A Song of Blood and Stone. And for some reason, when I reread this, I was actually more confused than I was when I first read it. Leslie world built it a little too close to the sun when she wrote this one, but somehow it works. You just really have to pay attention when you're reading, and I'm not a person who annotates books, but going back, I would probably annotate this book, and I would encourage others to annotate this book as well, just to help you remember and to figure out like what's actually going on in the kind of behind the scenes parts of the story. And like I thought before, it started off a little bit slow, but once it started to pick up, like it really picked up well. And I did notice some things that I didn't pay attention to or catch the first time I read this book. So you can read the synopsis here. It's not a difficult read, but Leslie really does a great job of building her world, and I would consider this book a high fantasy, even though it doesn't have like the typical things that you see in most high fantasies like mythical creatures or whatnot. This is high fantasy romance, because it's kind of a romantasy as well. And I will give it, well, I'm not going to rate it because I already read this book. And the second book in this series is called Whispers of Shadow and Flame, and this one is actually my favorite book of the series so far. It takes place during the same time as the first book, A Song of Blood and Stone, but it follows two completely different characters. And this one is a bit of a romantasy as well, but what I like most about this book is that both characters are Black. So you don't get much of the woe is me, we come from different backgrounds plot. And this one's more of an enemies to lovers, like cat and mouse type story. So there's a lot of action and adventure in this one. I'm gonna put up the synopsis for you to read. I don't think there are any spoilers in it, but you can read at your own risk. This one was a little bit more fast-paced than the first book, which I really enjoyed as well, but it ends on kind of a major cliffhanger that you have to read the next set of books for, and that's currently where I'm at. I'm kind of stuck in the novellas because that's where this story continues and where a lot of the background story for this whole series is, and I'm just kind of stuck in those novellas right now, but this one was really good. Shay Sanders dropped All I Want for Christmas Is Your Mom on Christmas Eve, and I couldn't resist. I read it on Christmas Day. It was a short read, and it's pretty much all in the title. The story started off with the daughter's boyfriend coming home with her and kind of just went from there. This one was short and sweet, but for a Shay Sanders book, it didn't really give that much in the bedroom. I don't know, something about this one just felt kind of light for a Shay Sanders book, like what I usually read by her, but it did the job, I guess. Okay, y'all, these next three books had me in a chokehold. I ate these books up within a 72-hour period. They were so good. It started with My Darkest Prayer by S.A. Cosby, and I don't know what he put in this book, but I ate it. And he does a really good job at picking his audiobook narrator, because the guy who reads his books is so good. So if you want to listen to this on audio, I would highly suggest it. The suspense in this book is so engaging, and the way this author writes his stories, his narratives are so authentic, and unapologetic. This book is pretty graphic. There are some explicit scenes in here, but it works for me, and it may offend other people, but it doesn't offend me. I had a really good time reading this book. Here's the synopsis if you want to read it. It's pretty short, but it's a fully fleshed out story. It's really fast paced and very easy to read and get into, especially if you like flawed characters and violence. 5 stars. After I finished My Darkest Prayer, I immediately started Blacktop Wasteland, and when I tell y'all I ate this book up. This book, I had an advanced copy of this book when it first came out, and I did not read it. Yes, this book was in my Kindle since 2021, and I am just now reading it. Yes, I am kicking myself. I was a fantasy girly back then, but now I am on whatever this man is writing because this book right here was so hard to put down. Just ask my family. This book reads like a movie, and the main character, Bug, is giving me like real kind of John Wick, Black John Wick energy. Actually, this book reminded me a lot of that show with Giancarlo Esposito. I think it was called The Driver. This book read just like that show. Waste no time getting into this story. I think somebody caught hands in like the first chapter, and it was kind of like on from there. So again, violence and characters with flaws, I'm here for it. 5 stars. And speaking of characters with flaws, the 2 main characters in this book were ex-convicts, but you just feel this empathy for them in your heart because they experienced this terrible loss. But I love how they both use their criminal past to go on this bloody rampage for retribution. I love how the themes in this book are both emotional and heartbreaking, but also very dark and twisted and violent and gory. I love it. You get increasing character development as the story goes on, but you also get non-stop action, which gives this book the perfect pace. I like that S.A. Cosby doesn't use fillers or just word vomit in his stories, and just every word feels like it has a purpose. Every sentence in his book has a purpose, and not many authors can do that, so 5 stars. And that was my December 2024 wrap up. It was a good month. Let me know what you think in the comments, and thank you so much for watching.